Good morning. Here we are. This is the last session of this course, our fifth session in English, and we're going to talk about the journal's profiles in Journal Citation Reports. Here is the program of those next 60 minutes. First of all, we'll have a theory part because before we dive into a journal's profile and the metrics, it's important that we understand those metrics. It's important that we understand how they are calculated. What is a category? How is calculated the impact factor and the percentile? Everything is related. So this is what I'm going to explain on the first half, and then we will dive into a journal citation report. We will have a look at a journal's profile, and then we will come back very quickly to the Web of Science, where I will show the summary of this information that we can see for each of the journals in the Web of Science. So let's start understanding the indexes and categories of the Web of Science. So I remind here about the difference between the Web of Science and the core collection. So you see here kind of a graphic, an image that is representing the whole Web of Science, like a snail. This Web of Science is composed of different databases. Each of the section is a different database. And at the core of the Web of Science, we have the core collection. The core collection of the Web of Science is the content that our company Web of Science is selecting and is indexing in a special way. So that's the main difference. It's content that we select and that we index. Outside of the core collection, there are other databases, specialized databases. Derwent specialized in patents, Medline specialized in medicine. This one, Derwent, is ours, but Medline is not. It belongs to the United States National Library of Medicine, and you have access to it for free within the subscription of the Web of Science. There are other specialized databases here. Some of them you don't have access. It depends on the subscriptions, but Medline, yes, everybody has access. And at the top, we have those regional databases coming from different countries in different language, which are the fruit of collaborations with other institutions. Now let's dive a bit more in the core collection. This is what is interesting us today. The core collection we see here is composed of 6 different indexes. We see here the names of those indexes. It depends on the type of the document. We have indexes for journals, and we have a specific one for books, another one for conference proceedings. And this one is also for journals, but it's a more recent index. Among those 6 indices, there are only 2 that will provide for those journals an impact factor. That's a big difference. Not all the journals of the core collection have an impact factor. Only the journals who are belonging to the science or the social science citation index. So that's the first thing that we have to remember. Only the journals of those 2 indexes have an impact factor. Now the second concept is the categories. Once a journal is selected to be part of the core collection, we assign to this journal at least one category. There are nowadays 254 categories. And a journal is assigned to at least one category, sometimes a bit more, but at least one, We could say that a category is like a scientific or research area, not always science, a research area. Here I'm going to click on the link, so we're going to have a look at the lists. It's available, it's in the help file. If in the help file you are looking for Web of Science categories, you will find this list. So we see here the top of the list. So a journal is always assigned to at least a category. By the way, 60% of the journals are assigned to only one category. We try to be as precise as possible, and the rest, 40%, to more than one category, usually two, but less often more than two categories. In this list, there is one category that is called multidisciplinary. Let me find its alphabetical order. We have it here, multidisciplinary sciences. This one is it's for the big journals that publish around every topic. We have multidisciplinary journals. For example, the ones who have the highest number of readers, Nature, plus one, Science. And there is content from absolutely all disciplines in those journals. So in this case, they are in this category. And there is around 60 journals in this category. The rest are in the other ones. So this is important to understand what is a category, because we're going to use this concept of category for the percentiles. So this is why I'm explaining before we dive into the calculation of the impact factor and the percentiles. So we know what is an index. We know what is a category. Let's follow the theory. Now let's have a look at the calculation of a journal impact factor. So let's talk about the creation, a bit of history about the impact factor. Who created the impact factor? Who invented this calculation? That person is called Eugene Garfield. Eugene Garfield is the inventor of the journal impact factor. He is also the founder of the Web of Science. He is the inventor of Journal Citation Reports, and also essential science indicators with those highly cited papers and hot papers. So he is the founder of all this. And initially, that calculation, that journal impact factor, was aimed at helping him and the team select the journals that will become part of the Science Citation Index. Before the Web of Science, it was all on paper, and we had only one index with a few hundred journals at that time. We were in the 60s. And from the beginning, we had a selection process. Not everything can be in the Web of Science. We select function of quality of the journals and function of the impact of the journals. There are nowadays 28 selection criteria. One of those is the impact. And because we want this selection to be transparent, Eugene Garfield invented this calculation. A lot of people got interested in this metric and requested this metric to become public, to become available, and the company started commercializing the journal impact factor in 1975. And from that moment, a lot of people started using it with very different aims from compared to the beginning, to the first use of the journal impact factor. Now let's have a look at the calculation. The calculation hasn't changed at all in all those decades. It's the same as in the 50s because it was invented in the 50s. We see here that we need 3 years of data, 3 complete years of data. We are now in 2020, and we will use the 3 previous years of data to determine what is the journal impact factor of 2019. This year, in 2020, we have been able to determine the journal impact factor for 2019, which means that this journal impact factor will apply to any paper journal that is published in this journal in 2019. Usually we ask for the journal impact factor of a journal from a paper. So this is the information that you are often requested. You published an article in 2019 in this journal. What was the impact factor of this journal that same year? This is the information that is often requested from you. So you have to pay attention and look at the journal impact factor on that publication year. And have in mind how was calculated this impact factor. So we need 3 years of data. We are having a look at the articles that were published the 2 previous years. Not every type of document, only articles and reviews, only those 2 types of documents. So we have a sum of items here. And for those items, we look at the citations that they are accumulating on a specific year, 2019. Items, citable items, this is how we call them, articles and reviews, 2017, 2018, and the citations that they have accumulated the 3rd year. So that is the calculation of the journal impact factor. And it's completely transparent. You're going to see those numbers in JCR. Now let's go a step beyond the journal impact factor, because very often we ask ourselves, or we are being asked, is it a good or a bad impact factor? And I have no idea. When I see a number, a single metric, how can I know if this metric is good or if this metric is bad? I have to know first about the context. What is the context? For example, here, what is the scale? What is the maximum? Depending on the maximum, that number can be good or it can be bad. So this is what we need to have a look at, the context, especially the context in terms of research area and in terms of year of publication, because every year it's going to change, the impact factor, the citations, and from one area to the other, it's also going to change a lot. Let's have a look here. Let's see this table, by the way, live. I am saying that depending on the research area, it can vary a lot. We see this table in JCR. Let me open the page. JCR, it is here in Browse by Categories. We are going to see the categories. Here we are. We have the list of categories. I'm not going to have a look at all the lists. Let's stay here at the top of the list. We have the name of the category. We have the index it's belonging to. There are only 2 indexes: Science Citation Index Expanded, Social Science Citation Index. This is what it means. Those are the acronyms of those 2 indexes. They are organized right now per number of journals, but I can reorganize them per any of those columns. And let's have a look to those 2 lines. Those are 2 categories of sciences with more or less the same number of journals. We don't know for the number of papers, but we can have a look here at the number of citations, and we see a huge difference, enormous, a factor 10. And that is one of the examples that we see all the times between physics and mathematics. The citation behavior is very different. it doesn't mean that physics is better than mathematics. It's not this at all. This is the way of researching, this is the way of publishing and citing that is very different in mathematics and in physics. And we see that with those numbers. And if we have a look at the aggregated impact factor, which means that the average impact factor of all those journals, it's the same number of journals more or less, we see again a huge difference. The journals of mathematics have a lower impact factor in average than physics because the behavior of citations in this discipline, in this area, is very different. So I will never be able to compare the journal impact factor of a mathematics article journal with the impact factor of another journal in physics. We cannot compare because those are two very different things. We're going to always look at the impact factor within a category. That's fair. In this case, we are already adding a context within a category and within a specific year also, because every year it's going to change that impact factor. So that's the first item. Have a look at the discipline. In this case, we are normalizing those impact factors. Let me go back to the presentation. We are normalizing those impact factors per category so we can compare those journals within the same category, one to the other. We call this the percentile. Here is the definition of the percentile. The calculation is a complicated equation. You don't need to know it, but you can find it in the help file of the JCR. What you have to remember is that the percentile we see here in this column of a journal is telling me whether this journal is very well ranked in this category or not. So with the percentile, I'm looking at the journals within a category and I'm ranking them from one to the last one. So here we see in a category, this journal is in position 1 because it is the one who has the highest percentile, the closest to 100%. So the percentile is between 0 and 100%. The higher I am, the better is going to be ranked that journal in this category. Now you may have heard about quartiles. Quartiles, it's another definition. In this case, we are dividing the percentiles in 4 sections, 4 equal sections. Let's say that I am having in this category 100 journals, let's say a very round number. I have 100 journals in this category. I am dividing per 4 equal parts, which means that I will have 25 journals in quartile 1 and 25 journals in the quartile 4. In each of those quartiles, I will have 25 journals. The 25 journals of the quartile 1 will have all a percentile above 75%. This is how the quartiles are divided, 4 equal parts for a category. So quartile 1 is above 75 and quartile 4 is below 25% percentile. So we have the definition now of a percentile and a quartile. A percentile is normalizing my journal impact factor within a category. Now I can know if this journal is having a good influence, a good impact compared to the other ones in the same category. If they are belonging to different categories, I won't be able to compare because the citation behavior is very different. Now let's go a step further. Let's complicate it a little bit more because it's possible that a journal is in more than one category. So that's something that happens often. One journal is in two different categories, so it will be in two different contexts, two different groups of journals. And it's perfectly possible that in each of those groups of papers, that journal is going to be in two different quartiles. It's going to have two different percentiles. It's normal because the percentile of this journal will depend on the journal impact factor of the other ones. Let's say I have a journal here with that journal impact factor arriving here, but this journal belongs to two different categories. Okay, let's have a look at the journal impact factor of the journals within this category. We might have in this category journal impact factors with lot higher journal impact factors. And in this case, my journal can be in the lower range. If I'm comparing to another group of journals with different impact factors, maybe in this case, my journal with exactly the same journal impact factor will be at the top of the list because the other journals will have a lower impact factor. And in this case, it could be in the quartile 1. So that is the difference between a journal impact factor and a percentile normalization. And you can see one journal with one impact factor, because there is only one per year, in two different categories with two different quartiles, percentiles. That's perfectly normal. It depends on what about the others? Who am I comparing it to? And for example, the image that I'm providing very often is myself and my height. I am, if I compare myself with a group of people that are tall, very tall, I will be considered a short person. That's the example. Depending on my height, if other people are taller than me, I will be considered a short person. But if I'm going to a country, for example, where people are not tall, which is the case with my parents, my family, if I compare myself with all those peoples because we have the same genetics, in this case, I'm not going to be a short person. I'm going one of the tallest people in the family. So my percentile will depend on the other people I'm comparing myself with. And that's the same with the journal impact factor. Now we've done the theory, and we are going to dive into the practice of the latest version of the journal impact factor. Let's have a look at those numbers related to that last publication of the journal impact factor of 2019. This impact factor will apply to all publications of last year, 2019. Nowadays, there are more than 12,000 journals having an impact factor belonging to this number of categories from different publishers. We see here the countries, it's really global. Some of the journals are in open access, other ones hybrids. And we have more than 300 new journals that have been added to the journal impact factor. So every year, we have more journals being added to the core collection and entering into the journal impact factor. That's a good news. We see also that the average journal impact factor is increasing. From last year, we see the increase, almost 10%. That's excellent also. But we have also the bad news. We have 33 journals that have been suppressed this year. Usually before the suppression of those journals, there is the first open letter, let's say, that is called expression of concern, an open letter to each of those journals, publishers, saying, we are observing things that we cannot understand, deviations. Very often it's self-citations, self-citations that are far above what we observe in a special discipline. And it's a concern. It's something that we would like to understand. If there is no explanation, no reply from those journals, then the following year probably they're going to be suppressed because we consider that self-citation, exaggeration of self-citation is somehow modifying, having an artificial effect on the journal impact factor, and we want this calculation to be fair for everybody. So every year we have those open letters and those journals suppressed, but we see here it's a small number. The positive number are the ones who are improving and getting an impact factor. Now let's dive into the practice. Let's go to JCR, the landing page of JCR here. So when you are in the Web of Science, you can arrive to JCR clicking on this icon, JCR. You should have access within the campus, and outside the campus, you will arrive to a proxy. I am going now to look for a specific journal. So I'm going to start writing the name of this journal. It's called Ocean Science, and that's the first one, Ocean Science. So I start writing, typing, and I get the names. We have two different journals. It looks like it's the same name, but it's not. Those are two different journals. This is the one I have chosen as an example for this month, Ocean Science. And now I'm arriving to the page, the profile page of this journal. At the top, I see the information about the publisher, the SSN, and the language, and the publication frequency. That's an open access journal from this year, 2005. And we see that these journals belongs to two different categories. So we have an example here of a journal with two different categories. We're going to see some of the sections of this page, not all of them. I'm going to start with the journal impact factor. So I'm going a bit down here, journal impact factor. Here we go. This is where we have the transparent calculation of the journal impact factor. We see here the numbers, what I was explaining to you. Below, we have the number of citable items, articles and reviews published in 2017 and 2018. We see the numbers here and the sum. And above, we are seeing the citations that those same documents have accumulated on 2019. And we see here the number. And those numbers are explained here on the right side. I could have a look to the citable items. This is what I have here in this tab. I can even, if I click in Show All, see each of them and export this information in Excel or view this information in the Web of Science, just to be able to check. Those are only articles and reviews, not other types of documents published in 2017 and 2018. And I can analyze, for example, those citables items if I want to. And on the next tab, I am analyzing now this number, the citations, and I'm seeing where those citations are coming from. They are organized per journal. And I'm seeing here that the citations are coming from, the highest number of citations is coming from two other journals, not the proper one, not the same one. So less self-citations here. They're coming from two different journals. And I can also see more in detail this information. because below the names of the journals, for example, let me open this one, I will see the papers at the paper level. And I can have more than one citation per paper. Here it's not the case. Let me open another one if I can find a paper with more than one citation. This one, for example, in this paper, there are two citations, two papers of Ocean Science Journal. And I can also export this information and view this information in the Web of Science. Those functionalities, tools that I'm showing here are especially helpful for editorial teams, for publishers, because they want to know what is working well or what is not. They need to analyze this information. This is why we are providing this detailed information here in the journal's profile. And they are trying to reproduce this calculation, which is not easy because we are really, in terms of citations, there is a manual work taking care that there is no duplication of those citations. So this is why it's so long to have this the journal impact factor being published every year. Now I'm going up. Let's have a look at two different sections. On the left side here, that's one of the most interesting sections, in my opinion, because that is providing me some insights about the history of that journal. The bars. The bars are the journal impact factor. The scale is here on the left, so I see how the journal impact factor has been evolving. It's quite stable. It went a little bit down and then up, but I mean, fairly stable, the impact factor. And the lines are the percentiles. Let me put my mouse on one of those lines. Now I'm going to do it this way. When I'm putting my mouse on, for example, the oceanography category, I am seeing that nowadays this journal is in the second quartile. It has a percentile of almost 74%. The percentile scales is here on the left, which means that here the first it's quartile 1, quartile 2, 3, and 4. It was in quartile 1 a few years ago, and nowadays for both, by the way, for both categories, this journal is in the quartile 2. And here I'm seeing the last 5 years. I could see all years here. And here I'm seeing the history of this journal. In this case, it entered in JCR in 2009. It was first in the quartile 3 and then it went up. It stabilized a bit and it went up again, and it's stable, let's say, a stable percentile and journal impact factor. It's interesting to have a look at this because we can then determine if this journal is having a stable influence, or if it's going down, or if it's going up. That provides me insights about its history. I see the impact factors and I see the evolution of the percentiles. Let me close this, and now I'm going to have a look at what is next on the right side. So this is related to the impact factor, but I mean, the impact factor here, it's an average. It's a metric for a journal that is telling me that a typical article, paper on this journal has been cited around 3 times 1 or 2 years after its publications. That's only an average. That's only a metric for a journal. Because if I'm looking at this, I'm going to see that for the content of this journal, the articles of these journals, I have a small number of articles with far more than 3 citations. I see here, depending on when I'm putting my mouse. I see here one article with 27 cited times. I have to take care exactly where I put my mouse. I don't know why there is a 0 here, one article. So I see, and it's always this shape that we see here, which means that the journal impact factor is an average for that journal, but it's not telling me for an article if this article has been cited a lot or not, because we see here the distribution. There are a small number of articles that have been cited a lot, and there is here a high number of journals that have been cited only once. Okay, so here we see the distribution for the articles of this journal, and the journal impact factor is only the average. It's a metric for a journal, not a metric for a paper. The paper might be much better than what we see, the average of the impact factor, or lower. We don't know. We have to look at the citation of this article within also a specific context. So we are not going to use the journal impact factor to evaluate a paper, and we are not going to use it either to evaluate a researcher. It doesn't make sense. We must have a look more in detail to those papers within a context. Now let's have a look at more indicators that we have here in this tab. I'm not going to detail them. You have other indicators here, for example, impact factors 5 years, without self-citations, other metrics that are not ours, but we know that people use them, so we have added them to this table. I'm going here now at the bottom of the page to explain those 3 sections. This one is new on the left. It's again something that might help publishers, editors. We see especially where the citations are coming from in terms of open access. So here, because I have chosen an open access journal, I'm going to see that all the items that this journal has published are gold. This is why we have only this color. And interestingly, we see that the citations to those items are in the vast majority coming also from gold content, gold open access journals. You see, depending on where I put my mouse, I see the numbers here. So I have all these details. I'm going to use my presentation where I have, let me escape this, where I have a slide explaining the different colors. And this slide is here, okay. So when I am not choosing an open access journal, I'm going to see those 3 colors. The gold color for open access content coming from DOAJ journals or other gold journals, hybrid journals with some of their papers in open access. The blue color is for free to read. That's the equivalent of what we call bronze, green published, and green accepted in the Web of Science. Those definitions are in the Web of Science for bronze, green published, and green accepted. In JCR, it's a package that we call free to read. And the other ones that are in subscription, coming from subscriptions. So citable items are the items coming from the paper, and citations, the citations to those items. So you can familiarize yourself with that new section of the JCR aimed at helping publishers, editorial teams make decisions, because there is more and more pressure on journals to become open access. But it's an important decision and they need data to make this decision. And we are helping with this new section. Let me go back to JCR. We have two more tabs here. Those tabs are telling me who is writing in these journals. And they are organized per country and organized per institution. So here at the top, it is a German um, journal. Well, at least the publisher is in Germany. It's in English language. So I think that's the explanation why we have Germany in the first instance here in terms of country publishing in this journal. Well, they are tied with the United States. And then we see other European and outside Europe, China, publishing in this journal. So that's interesting to see in terms of country who is writing in this journal, and then more detailed we see this information in terms of institutions, and the first one is again a German institution, and again we just after we have French, Italian institutions. We have Spanish one, CSIC here. I can see more in detail if I click on the arrows. I'm going to see, I guess it's up to 50, something like this. Yeah, but we have a lot who are tied. Yeah, we see here. Some institutions are tied here. And it's taking into consideration the last 50 years, okay? I'm sorry, not last 50 years, last 3 years. So 50 items, last 3 years of data. So it's interesting, you see who is writing in this journal. Now I'm going up. We've seen more or less what I wanted to show for a profile. That's the latest version, the current version. Journal impact factor and profile for 2019. We have access to exactly the same page for the previous year, the 2 previous years. So we are going to see the same organization and the same metrics the previous year, and the same thing for 2017. And on this one, we're going to see all years compiled in tables, dynamic tables, depending on the year that I'm selecting and depending on the trend that I want to see. For example, here I've clicked on, let me click another year, 2012. From the moment I click on 2012, I'm going to see below all the indicators for 2012 years. And in terms of trends, also, if I want to see, for example, the average journal impact factor percentile, if this journal is in different categories, I am clicking now on this trend, and I am seeing this trend here across, well, along the last years. But I can change it also here. I can see the trend of any of those metrics. Let's see if they have published more citable items. Yes, we see that they are publishing more in the last 3 years. That's interesting to observe also. It has increased the content. So they are publishing more papers. So you have also this page at your disposal to analyze it and play with the different indicators. So this is what I wanted to show for a journal. Now we're going to do something different. We're going to search for journals depending on some criteria. I'm going to this area, browse by journals, because very often people are asking, how do I know what are the journals with a high impact in my discipline? This is the question that I'm receiving very often. And there are different ways to determine those journals. One of those ways is to have a look at JCR in one or different categories and have a look at the impact factor and the percentile of those journals. Let's do a very simple exercise. We're going to have a look at the journals in one category, could be more, but to make it simple, I've chosen only one. So here I have a list of all the journals who have a journal impact factor right now. I have the filters on the left. As usual, I am going to select a category. Today it's going to be computer science. So it's in alphabetical order, yes. And I have chosen computer science and artificial intelligence. I could select more than one, but I'm going to keep it simple for today. Computer science, artificial intelligence. I select at the bottom of the page, I submit. How many journals do I have in this category? I have 137 journals. And in this table, I see their names, their ESSN, total sites, journal impact factor. They are organized per this column. And we see the percentile here. I am seeing those metrics here, but I could see more metrics. I can customize my indicators depending on the ones that are interesting me. Okay, for example, ESSN is one that I've added last time. I'm going to remove it. I'm going to only have a look at those metrics. Okay, so I have all the journals in this category. Now I would like to know what are the ones, the first half, the ones that are in quartile 1 and quartile 2, Q1, Q2. Those filters are here, quartiles, Q1, Q2, and I select, submit. So I should have half, 65, 67, something like this, 68, okay, journals. The first half with a percentile in this category above 50%. And I am taking advantage here. This column is the average percentile, so it can be a bit different of the percentile of in this category. If the journal belongs to another category, I'm going to see here the average of its two percentiles, which explains here that I have some of them with different numbers. It's not organized perfectly because probably some of those journals have a different percentile in another category. So I'm seeing here a bit different numbers. It's the average that I have here. But for this category that I have chosen, for sure, all of them have a percentile above 50% because I have applied this filter. So I can just open one of the profiles and check. Let me apply another filter, open science filter. I want to see open science, open access. I have a filter open access here. I have more filters, publishers, country, region. You can play with all of them. I want to see here the journals belonging to the DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals only. I submit, and I have how many journals? I have 6 journals fulfilling those 3 criteria: category, quartile, and open access. And I could export this list. I have the exportation feature here. Export in Excel, for example. I can save this list, add journals to new or existing list. I have to select them. Okay, I am going to select them all. I could select some of them. I'm going to select them all, add, and I'm going to give this list, because I think I have already saved it, I'm going to call it test and add test 27. Okay, that's the date. Add. Doesn't accept this. So I'm going to put letters. Okay, here I have saved my list. Okay, where is this list saved? To save anything, it's the same as the Web of Science, Publons, etc. You need to be logged in with your account, and you're going to use the same account. This is what I recommend. Otherwise you won't be able to save where. I have to save it in my account. So I'm logged in here with my account. I recommend that you do the sign in and you log in with your account. When I save something, it's here in my folder. And you see here that I've been saving different things from JCR, from ESI. It's a shared folder for those two platforms. And I'm providing different names and different dates. I'm doing some exercises every time I'm doing a different saving. So let me go back to this one, the one that I had just saved. Okay, so that's my list. I can open a journal. For example, I'm interested in having a look at this one. I click on the name because it's blue, it's a link. And it's going to bring me directly to the profile of this journal. And we see the history of the journal, the distribution of the citations, the calculation of the journal impact factor. So I have a direct link to this journal. Let me go back. So we've seen export, we've seen save. It's also possible to compare journals. Let's say that I'm going to compare those three ones and compare selected journals, or I could go directly here and select the one that I want to compare, but I'm going to take advantage. I am in this page. Those are the three ones I want to compare. I want to compare trends. And I have to choose, I want to see the JCR of the last 3 years. Submit. Okay. Oh, and we see that there is only one journal, Frontiers in Neurobotics, that had a journal impact factor the 2 last years. Those 2 ones are new. They didn't have an impact factor before. So that's interesting. I can observe that. It could be another metric, okay? I could also compare. Let me have a look at, do I have percentile here somewhere? I've cited, yeah, quartiles. Well, because I hadn't submit, I'm going to see only one, yeah, because those ones didn't have. So maybe I should have chosen another set of journals. So here you can compare any of the metrics. Let me go back to, well, journal impact factor, submit, and with this graphic, very quickly I can observe that there are 2 new journals. The other ones didn't have an impact factor and the percentile in the previous years. So that's good. They are among those journals, those 350 journals that didn't have an impact factor before. Okay, so we've done those exercises in JCR. Now, before we leave JCR, one more thing. Talking about precisely those titles that are arriving in JCR, those titles leaving JCR in the help file that I recommend. You have more information if there is an indicator, a metric that you don't understand. You search here in the box and you will probably find the definition. And I'm just here saying that in terms of suppressions and open letters, expressions of concerns, we have also here the lists. This is public. We are seeing here the list of journals that have left the JCR, and we see the reason here. Self means self citations. The reason is that we have observed a level of self-citation to that same journal that is much higher than what we see in other journals with the same type of content. And there is more details. It can be self, it can be stacking. We see here the numbers and the comparison, the distortion that we are observing. So this information is public, and the expression of concern, that's the open letter to those journals. And I think here we should be able to see also those lists of journals and what we are observing. Could be self, could be stacking. When you see stacking, it means one journal to the other. So we are leaving now JCR, and we are going very quickly to the Web of Science. Let me close this and this. The Web of Science, because in the Web of Science, we see a very brief summary of the JCR. Let me do a search. Let me repeat one of the searches that we had done before. For example, this one. I only want a list of results. Okay, here we are. And when you see the name of a journal in blue color, it means that this journal has an impact factor, because when I'm going to click on the name of that journal, I am going to see the summary of the latest information. The most recent impact factor is appearing here. And we see that this journal is belonging to 3 categories. In one of them, it is in quartile 1, and in the 2 others, it is in the second quartile. So here, what I'm seeing for any paper, when I'm clicking in this link, whatever is the year of publication, I am seeing the latest available version of the impact factor, which might be different from the year of publication. Okay, so I have to take care of this. I am only seeing the latest version, not the impact factor of the publication year. If I want to get that number, then I will take advantage of the link that I have here. I will click on the link, arrive to this journal's profile, and let's say that I have published a paper in this journal 3 years ago, for example. We could find this metric here in this page, journal impact factor, and this is the number that's very often I am asked, what is the impact factor and the percentile of this journal in that year of publication. And if it's for previous years, I'm going to find this information in this tab. Okay, so when I am asked what is the impact factor of the journal where you published this article, I am going to have a look at the impact factor of the year when I published this article, because every year it's changing. Let me go back to the Web of Science. One last thing for people who are interested in doing a search per journal. Usually those are editors, or you want to refine a search per journal. You're doing a topic, and then you want to have a look per journal, specific journal. And in the drop-down menu, it's called publication name. Publication name, it's the name of the journal, but could also be, I remind you, could also be a book or a conference proceeding, because we have also those indexes here. Let's say it's a journal. Let's keep it simple. Let me start typing energy, for example. And Web of Science is offering me titles of journals with energy. Perhaps now I have a smaller list. For example, energy policy, I don't know, energy conversion and management. Let's do this. So I can search here per journal. You might not see this here. Why do I have this type and fill in automatically because, let me show you this. I am with my account today, and I'm always working with my account, by the way. And this is one of my advantages when I have my account. I can choose my preferences. And here I have decided, please auto suggest publication names, and I have put it on. If I put it off, I won't have here any, it will not offer any publication name. Save settings now, off. Publication name, I am writing and nothing will happen. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to look at this name in the index to be sure that I write it properly. And let me find journals with the word energy. And here I have, and I have a lot of conference proceedings. So I recommend, let me cancel this, having here this option selected, auto suggest publication names. It's easier because I'm typing and it's offering me solutions. And here I have also the option. I always do simple searches. If I want more, I am adding rows depending on what I need. But if I'm always doing complicated searches, I can also have per default, it's going to clear. I'm okay with this. Save settings. I can have this also when I start. Always those three fields. I can always add more. I can change anything. So it depends on your preferences. So here I am again in my preferences and I'm going back to what I prefer. I prefer only one line and I'm back. Save settings. Yes, it's saved. So those are among my preferences with my account. So we've seen all that I wanted to show today related to the journals. We are arriving at the end. Let me go now to the last slide. It's time for questions. I have to escape this first because I was there and now I am going here. So that's the end. That's the end of this session. And that's the end of this course also, along 3 weeks. Let's see if we have questions now in the chat related to the content of today, related to journals and JCR.